And my points for this evening are about support for impeachment growing. As hard as the Republicans try to spin this, as hard as stalwarts like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell attempt to laugh off the idea of Dem impeachment, they're like, bring it, we love it. You're just hurting yourself. You're just punching yourself in the face with doing this thing that we're not scared about at all. We're not scared about the American public coming to grips more with the totality of the betrayal of American national interest in favor of Trump advancing his personal political need to win re-election next year. Nope, it's all risible. Ha ha ha. Not nervous. Not concerned at all. So I just saw a bit of Trevor Noah, and that's sometimes a great way to get your news, because if you hear your news in comic form, you're more relaxed, you're more comfortable, you're better able to engage with the information, and your retention rate is better. That's been statistically shown with American news consumers, that those who watched Jon Stewart's daily news show, etc., and Stephen Colbert were infinitely better informed than Fox viewers, but also than just straight CNN news viewers. That news is less engaging. CNN presents news in a way that will just flood your amygdala, your limbic system in your brain with anxiety, and you'll be less able to retain specific bits of information. Whereas Trevor Noah, once you've laughed at the idea that yes, Trump and the media have claimed that President Zelensky of Ukraine said he felt no pressure from President Trump in that phone call, but then Trevor Noah plays a clip of the president of Ukraine talking about it, and he said, I don't want to get involved with the democratic election. But yes, sure, it was a very normal conversation. We talked about normal things, and I think, yes, it was good, and there was no pressure on me. And Trevor Noah likens that to a hostage situation where you ask a victim in front of their hostage taker, an ongoing hostage situation, and you say, how are your captors treating you? And they say, great, fine. People who have watched that skit remember some of the details of what's happening, and that Trump is exploiting the fact that he has the might of America behind him. He has all of the taxpayer-funded might of the American coffers that Congress could allocate in a bipartisan way, $391 million worth of military aid for Ukraine, that is an ally to America, that has had American reassurances that they would protect Ukraine from Russian militaristic intervention and aggression, and that they've already let Ukraine down because Putin has already acquired Crimea and he's already acquired parts of Donbass. And instead of remedying that deficiency in aid to their ally, Trump has allowed Putin to grow ever more bold that he won't be challenged. That Russian media habitually celebrates Putin's hold over Trump and says, yeah, we elected him. And Russian media often report on the content of conversations between Putin and Trump before the American media has heard anything about it. And now we know more about how that has been achieved in a systematic sense. Oh, I'm going to just check to make sure that I've got volume. So bear with me, because if I play my own video, oops, nope. Trying to see if it's updating. There we go, to watching, so presumably there's some sound. Let's see. It's playing, there's sound, so that's excellent. So to return to our points, we're saying that America has militarily failed its ally, that it promised the Ukraine years ago that if it gave up its nuclear weapons that it wanted to have to act as a deterrent against Russian aggression, that America would make up for that deficit, that they would be there to deter Russia from invading and acquiring Ukraine. So yes, they have been betrayed very substantially. The American people should be more informed. People should be talking about how 13,000 people in Ukraine have already died. So it's a big deal for Trump to be holding back aid for 7 weeks, just letting more people in Ukraine die, dragging out this hostage situation with American money, not his own money, putting the might of the American superpower that he happens to lead on hold for Ukraine to pressure them, to pressure the Ukrainian President Zelensky, to fabricate something against his opponent, to increase his own chances of political survival and staying out of jail. We can understand why Trump might be so motivated to win in 2020. The dude is going to jail if he doesn't get re-elected, because he's only been able to escape indictment now because of a very old 1974 Office of Legal Counsel memo that said, it was written up during Nixon's time, and it said a sitting president can't be indicted. So there have been subsequent memos that have supported it, saying, yep, don't indict other presidents as well, but that's when the memo initiated. There have been other memos contradicting that memo as well, but some people felt it to be binding, Mueller, and some people didn't read the Mueller report. And Nancy Pelosi did a good job, really. I was so mad. I thought the way they're disregarding the Mueller report, this was supposed to be their one shot. They got this investigation, a special prosecutor. A lot of us did put our eggs in that basket of hope to say, volume is good, excellent, thank you. What was I saying? Oh, can anybody remind me of what I was saying? Ukraine, aid, Trump seeking re-election. Well, Nancy Pelosi keeping her powder dry. So yes, I was very upset at the implication that there was nothing in the Mueller report, because 1,000 federal prosecutors signed a letter saying if this were anyone other than the sitting president, there would be indictments for obstruction of justice. There are 10 obstructive acts described in the Mueller report, and 4 of them are watertight with all various elements required for obtaining and sustaining a conviction, so that a prosecutor would feel very confident bringing those charges of obstruction on those but specific acts to trial. There was proximity to an investigation, i.e. Trump knew he was being investigated and he obstructed. There was intent, all the manner of things that prosecutors are more familiar with than me, but having read about it, like all of the rest of us on leftish orientated Twitter, we knew it was a big deal. But it was also crimes that happened before Trump took office. Actually, no, that's not true. It related to a crime before Trump took office. He was obstructing justice, which is a crime and a significant crime, pertaining to things that he had done prior to being elected. So yes, Trump relied on crimes to get elected. He then successfully obstructed the special prosecutor in investigating that crime of collusion to just destroy evidence. And Mueller then had to say, I wash my hands of it, I pass it to Congress, I cannot produce an indictment for you, but you should know that I felt from the start I couldn't produce an indictment because of this memo. So we don't really know at what stage Mueller decided he couldn't proceed with an indictment. He certainly did some good groundwork in establishing a base of support, a strong base of support, but it wasn't a majority, and now it's hitting a majority. So last week, the position was 49% were against impeachment of surveyed voters, and 45% were in favor of impeachment. And now it's completely inverted. So it's 49% of the public in favor of impeachment and 45% opposed. So that's a plurality. When you've got more, it's not over 50%, but it's a plurality. It's the bigger group. So yay, that's really important. Let me see if I can see any more comments. I will say hi, hello. I have to use another device to see your comments, but hopefully that's okay. I told you this was less interactional than Periscope, but it is important, because if we are to build this conversation and build its reach, then we need YouTube, because YouTube is more readily shareable and has algorithms that will respond to popularity and then push this scope on more people, push this broadcast on more people and attract more viewers at some point. I think something I'll need going forwards is like little sounds that I can say, now it's time to do breaking news, and now it's time to do positive language choice of the day. So what did I write down for good language choice for today? I wrote down the term poorly regulated. So I'm inspired by the Second Amendment, which has the phrase well-regulated militia. and when all of the gun fetishists fixate on the part of it that says shall not be infringed, which just means let your cheap volunteer army buy their own weapons and arm themselves to be in this army without telling them no, without infringing on that right, because they are volunteers and we need this army. So they focus on shall not be infringed, and they also make up an additional phrase of it's our God-given right. Sure, deluded weirdos with a higher statistical likelihood than normal of becoming a mass murderer. Sure. Or maybe just not sure. No, in fact, be quiet and go away. Recognize that you're the minority, your views are deeply unpopular in America. Everybody would prefer to live in a country where there was less risk of being shot to death, or your children being shot to death, or your church and your community, people losing their lives and just ripping apart the fabric of your society. So there's that. But anyway, taking the phrase well-regulated, reclaiming it and inverting it a little bit to talk about lots of things. So capitalism that abuses people, I'm going to call poorly regulated capitalism. Some people say predatory capitalism, which is also fine and engaging and vivid, but poorly regulated capitalism is my good language choice vote for the day. All right. Let's read. Oops. I've got plenty of volume and it's coming out loud and clear. Thank you. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, someone else. And Rohan we have as well. Okay, great. We'll go and see if I can Google very quickly that complaint, because the good thing about the complaint from the whistleblower is it's so brief and so well written. So let's Google complaint. There we go. Oh, somebody's annotated it. That's nice. That's always informative when we get annotated. If my phone runs out of battery, please don't wait for me to come back. I will just be going to bed. All right. In the course of my official duties, I have received information from multiple US government officials that the President of the United States is using the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 US election. This interference includes, amongst other things, pressuring a foreign government, a foreign country, to investigate one of the president's main political rivals. The president's personal lawyer, Mr. Rudolph Giuliani, is a central figure in this effort. Attorney General Barr appears to be involved as well. So that's very important, because Attorney General Barr is out and about giving quotes to people that he is surprised and angry to have been named in the transcript of President Trump's conversation. So he's in the transcript, he's there. It's confirmed that, yes, the whistleblower wasn't just talking out of his butt or her butt. The whistleblower is supported by what we know of the facts, that Trump referenced Attorney General William Barr. He said to the Ukrainian president, please hang out with my lawyer, hang out with my other lawyer, William Barr, to fix this, to get the ball rolling. I need a favor though, blah, blah. Some reciprocity would be good. Blackmail, blackmail, bully, bully, extort, extort. For a president whose country is at war, in a hot war with Russia, meaning there are troops involved, there are deaths involved, that man, to do his country justice and to save the lives of his people, is in a position where he has to try and cultivate Trump. So he says, I stayed in Trump Hotel. I violated I helped you violate the Foreign Emoluments Clause. I hope that's enough for you. Well, okay, also we're looking to buy some javelins from you. We'll buy things. I'll stay in your hotel more. Please protect my people according to the nature of our alliance. Please protect my people from being killed by Russian soldiers. Oh, now you're asking me to sit next to you in public and tell the media that there's no pressure. Sure, there was no pressure on me by Donald Trump. Sure, just don't let my people die anymore. I'm returning to the complaint now. Over the past 4 months, more than half a dozen US officials have informed me of various facts related to this effort. The information provided herein was relayed to me in the course of official interagency business. It's much easier to read this aloud than it was to try and read aloud the Mueller report. That thing was portentous and chock-a-block stuffed full of legalese. And Robert Mueller, bless him, should have written some stuff that was like a one-page summary that was really intelligible. And instead we got Barr's one-page summary that was deviated from the findings of the report, deviated from the sense of the report, and also just flat out misrepresented whether or not Robert Mueller felt constrained by the Office of Legal Counsel memo, because he entirely did, and he said that in his testimony. No, what did he say it in? Anyway, Robert Mueller at some point admitted that he felt constrained by that memo, in contrast to what Barr had appeared in front of the public and said. I'm concerned that they're friends, quite frankly. Robert Mueller and William Barr were friends for a long time, and Barr evidently has this decades worth of history of covering up for Republicans, whitewashing their involvement in torture and other scandals. So that's sad that they were friends. We wouldn't have dared talk about that much before, because we just instinctively would have wanted to shy away from killing people's hope and pooping on their idea that Robert Mueller was going to ride in like a white knight on a horse and save us from Trump. Instead, we just had to wait for a white princess or a white knight whistleblower to ride in and point out things that we already intuited, that Trump is very super duper corrupt and he will misuse every part of the resources available to him as president in order to save his own butt and to continue to benefit himself as a business person, as a free citizen who wants to keep his butt out of jail. All right. I was not a direct witness to most of the events described. A Republican talking point that they say, hey, they weren't there. And courts never rely on hearsay evidence. Courts do. It's a frequent thing that people will report evidence that has been compiled and heard, and anyway. However, I found my colleagues' accounts of these events to be credible because in almost all cases, multiple officials recounted fact patterns that were consistent with each other. So yes, this is a CIA analyst we know now thanks to the stupid bloody New York Times. And by the way, I often campaign and say cancel your New York Times subscription. Not because I don't like New York Times journalists, I mostly do like them and they've got some great articles. But some journalists write puff pieces to normalize Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, to make Trump sound like he's just having a bad day, as opposed to being a deviant level traitor, liar, and oathbreaker. And then the management of the New York Times will do things like commission an article where it sends reporters to Midwestern towns and they interview people who are clearly crazy banana Trump supporters, and then they write an article saying swing voters don't appear to be in favor of impeachment, so this could be a political liability for Dems. And it's like, bullshit, New York Times. BS, New York Times. You said swing voters. You interviewed a woman who had been to 23 Trump rallies and who was busy compiling Trump tweets into a book for publication. Like literally someone who thinks Trump tweets are so great that people would spend money buying a book compilation, and she's putting her effort and energy towards that effect. And maybe she will have customers, and maybe she'll have more customers because the New York Times helped lift her profile in a puff piece, pretending that these Trump acolytes, Trump cult members, were swing voters. So after that happened, and then they also revealed details about the employment history of the whistleblower, exposing the whistleblower to extreme danger at the hands of a powerful, unprincipled president who said to people, oh, that person is essentially a spy, and I know what we used to do in the old days to spies. It was much more efficient, i.e. kill them. And he's saying the whistleblower is a spy because the whistleblower reported on covert, nefarious activities on the part of the president. So yes, there was a big cancel your New York Times subscriptions, and a lot of people got on board. It was reported there were 30-minute queues on phone lines to cancel your New York Times subscription the day they put out that revealing piece about the whistleblower. And they defended themselves by saying, we thought it important to say what we knew or what we could find out about the whistleblower's identity so people could judge the credibility of the whistleblower for themselves. Nonsense. People could judge based on the writing style of the report, its moderate